is a stylistics lecture, or is our first lecture in stylistic course, our stylistics course, which shall do is language and style. We are going to look at interrelation, how these two disciplines or two terms are interrelated, where you can see the style there and the language. So you need to have the basic platform of this course is like linguistics, because stylistics is a part of linguistics. We are going to know the difference between them. Linguistics will study different aspects of language scientifically, while stylistic we are going to see how these, as it is a part of linguistics, but it studies certain aspects of language variation, how language is varied from X to Y. They all speak in the same language, but it's not the same way that they do. Language, there is some sort of language variation between X and Y's. So stylistic has to do with that language variation. While linguistics is like they follow the same linguistic pattern, and then they use it, they follow they speak the language syntactically, grammatically, I mean, phonologically, phonetically, whatever. They pronounce it the same way. They follow the same grammatical pattern of the language, and so verse, and so on and so forth. But how these language are varied, this is the main concern of statistics. So it is recognized as a branch of linguistics since 1950s. Since 1950s, it has been considered as a branch of linguistics. But for a period of time, stylistics has been considered as developing and controversial field of study. A little bit different from, has its own past. It has to do with this, according to David Crystal and David Dewey. And the scope of its study and diversity of research methodology are a matter of concern to scholars representing different schools and directions of science. So, according to people started to find out the difference between linguistics and stylistics, and they go in different ways and different perceptions, and then they came to the conclusion that uh, one stylist shows how language is varied here and there, while linguistics is the study of the language scientifically. So, according to scholars, stylistic studies the principles and the effect of choice of usage of different language, the way the style and the way the language is used. This is the main concern of stylistics. The language elements in rendering, in presenting the language and the thought of an emotion under different condition of communication. The way that language is rendered is presented, or rendering or presenting the thought, the way that we are using the same language, for example, the same linguistic pattern to render our thought, emotion, and different conditions of communication. But the way that you're doing this, we're rendering, presenting the language and our thought and emotion and the different condition of communication. This is the main concern of statistics. For these issues include the way that language is rendered, our thought, emotion, and different linguistic or condition of communication are rendered, include the aesthetic function of language, how the language aesthetic devices are used, the impressive means of language, how language is used impressively, how language is used supersententially, synonymous ways of rendering one and the same idea, the way that we present the same idea differently, emotional coloring in language, how do we show our emotion by how emotions are colored or showed in the language we use. A systematic device, a system of devices called stylistic device, how stylistic devices are used, the splitting of the literary language into separate systems called style. So the style is how to use the aesthetic devices, how you can split all these aesthetic devices into the language used. This is called the style, because you have your own style, I have my own style. This is due to the aesthetic devices that we use. This is due to the splitting of the literary language that 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 we that it, that we use. The interrelation between language and thought, even this is one of the concern of the stylistics. The individual manner of an author in making use of language, Some authors, we need to look at how their individual manner of any author in making use of the language. How is a certain author uses the language, showing his individual manner. And again, according to Prof. I.R. Galbraith, he states that statistics deals with mainly with two interdependent tasks. There are two jobs that you do, which has to do with statistics, connected with the investigation of the inventory of a special language media. What are these two interdifferent what are these two interdependent tasks that are connected with the investigation of the inventory of special language media, which by their ontological features. What's meant by ontological features? Ontological features, that means the linguistic features that describe the effect of the utterance and certain types of text, which is discourse affect the discourse. Okay. Which due to the choice and arrangement of the language means are distinguished by the pragmatic aspect of the communication. So the interdependent task that connected with the investigation of the way that language is used as a medium of instruction or a medium of communication is mean by their ontological features, which describe the effect of the utterance by within a certain context or discourse. So the special media of language, which by their ontological features secure is very secure that according to the ontological features of the language, it is very secure. The desirable effect of the utterance are called the stylistic devices. Stylistic devices are the stylistic devices are the ontological features which secure the desirable effect of the utterance. The desirable effect of the utterance. So, whatever that special word that you are using, this is called stylistic devices. What are you using so that to show your own style? What distinguish X's style from Y's is stylistic devices. According to ontological features of language, what are the devices? What are the linguistics ways or methods that are used to show this style? While expressive means the type of text that are distinguished by the pragmatic aspect of communication, by the are distinguished by the pragmatic aspect of communication. This is called functional styles of language. If any types of text that is being distinguished by the pragmatic aspect of communication, you know, this is called functional style of language. Functional style of language through which that the types of text are distinguished by the pragmatic aspect of communication. So stylistics is a branch of linguistics that studies a branch of linguistics that studies various functional styles and expressive functional styles, expressive means, and device of language. So when you come to stylistics, we are going to look at uh, what do we study here? Do we study the functional style of the text, the expressive meanings of the means of the text, and the device of language that is being used? So when you come to look at X's or Y style, you need to look at this, the functional the functional style, the expressive means, and the devices of language used within a certain text or context. So the study, so the term is applicable to the study of stylistic uh, peculiarities of the language of the work of fiction. So when you study a certain language, stylistically, you need to look at these different areas. These different areas. What are the branch of stylistics? The branch of stylistics, according to the type of stylistic researchers, is called distinguish several branches of stylistics. Number one, the most important division is the differentiation between literary stylistics and linguistylistics. You have literary stylistics and linguistylistics. For sure, lingo has to do with language. So both of these study the common ground of, number one, the literary language from the point of view of variability. What are language? What various literary device are used within a certain language? The in idiolect, which is individual speech, idiolect, which is the individual speech of a writer. You can see the idiolect, the individual speech of a writer within a certain text. And then the poetic speech that has its own specific laws. We go to the poetic speech, which has to do with rhyme and stanzas and all these figurative or poetic features. So we need to look at the literary stylistics and lingua stylistic. These are different branch of stylistics. So the difference between them, literary stylistic and lingua stylistics, from the different points of analysis. While lingua stylistics studies functional styles in their development and current state, in which is language in general, and the linguistic nature of expressive means of language, their systematic character and their function. This is lingua stylistic. You look at the language in general, while the expressive means of language, while literary stylistics is focused on the composition of the work of art, how art's different aesthetic devices are used in a certain text, various literary genres and authors' views and outlook. While we have comparative stylistics is connected with the contrastive and comparative study of stylistic characteristics of more than one language. You look at English and Arabic, French and English, English and Russia, English and Kazakh. So when you look at these different, when you study two languages comparatively, this is comparative styles. You look at the English, if you want to compare English style with an Arabic style in terms of grammar, in terms of phonetics, in terms of phonology, in terms of, you can look at it. So this is called comparative stylistics. So the style of Arabic language is like not the same as English and so forth. So comparative stylistics aims to do what? Analyzing the key components of stylistic, taking into consideration the corresponding information from two or more languages, attempting to explain the existing differences and similarities in style between Arabic or English, for example, and it is more concerned with the theory of translation, contributing to to better and in deep knowledge and understanding of specific stylistic characteristics of languages. So this is why comparative statistics has to do with comparing two languages in terms of different linguistic patterns, or either suprasententially or suprasegmentally. Okay, we have decoding stylistics. Right now we have uh, comparative stylistics. We have linguist. We have linguistylistics. We have where is it? Linguistylistics. We have and linguistylistics and literary stylistics. Then we have comparative analysis stylistics, stylistics. Decoding stylistics is the trend in stylistics that employs the knowledge of such sentences as information theory, psychology, linguistics. Literary studies history of art, and so on. It regards the aesthetic value of the text based on the interaction of specific textual elements. So you need to interpret when you try to interpret a certain text to decode it. It's a kind of you look at it from the language perceptions, and you look at it subrepresentation and subresegmentally according to the language of the text. So it's a kind of decoding as if you are interpreting a certain text using the nature of the language of the target text or of the text under analysis. So it regards the aesthetic values of the text, which based on the interaction of specific textual elements. So how the different textual elements, for example, are interrelated in a certain text, so that leads to the to the aesthetic values of that text. This is why this branch of linguistics helps the reader in understanding of a literary work by explaining decoding the information that may be encoded by the writer and hidden from immediate view. So decoding analysis or stylist has to do with how the text is decoded, because the writer of the text encode the text, giving it its own aesthetic values according to the language of the text. So that when a writer or when we write to decode to analyze this text from a decoding stylistician point of view, we are going to look at how the language is being understood by explaining or decoding the information that is being encoded by the writer. When the text is analyzed, when the text is analyzed from the decoding point of view, which is the reader's angle, it is necessary to take the maximum information from the text itself, the vocabulary, the grammar, the sentence arrangement, and so on. If we analyze the text from the encoding point of view, which is the writer's angle, we should pay attention to the epic. That means the theme, the main idea that the writer wants to convey through this text, the historical situation of the writer, the personal, political, social, and aesthetic views of the author. So either we look at the text from an encoding point of view, decoding point of view, that the writer's point of view, which the writer looks at the text from his own knowledge of the language of the text, or in terms of the vocabulary, in terms of grammar, in terms of all these linguistic elements. It's not like when we encode the text. When we look at the text from a writer's point of view, where his political views, his own personality, his educational patterning or schooling, his social and aesthetic views are very clear in the text. So when you look at the text and you want to do some sort of decoding analysis or decoding stylistics, you need to look at the writers from a writer's point of view, from the reader's point of view, not like when you look at it from a writer's point of view. Together, this is called decoding stylistics. When you look at the writer's point of view, are intermingled with the reader's point of view, are intermingled with the writer's angle, so that this gives like a thorough or a comprehensive picture of the text that is being decoded. For decoding stylistics is an attempt of to harmoniously combine the two methods of stylistic analysis and enable the scholar to interpret a work of art with a minimum loss of its uh, purport of music or theme of music or digest of the music. Decoding stylistics is an attempt to do what? Uh, so we have such linguists who are mainly concerned of decoding analysis are Jackson, L.V. Sherba, B.A. Larin, and I.V. Arnold. Those are most statistician, and they are very concerned about decoding stylistics. We have functional stylistics, which investigate the function style, the language, special sub-language or variety of national language. In the English literary standard, linguists distinguish the following major functional style, like Belletra, which is a beautiful or fine. Belletra means beautiful or fine writing. Belletra, publicity style, newspaper style. This is functional style. Functional style has to do with the language itself and how these different aesthetic or functional styles are used. You know, they are using. You look at, for example, how nice and beautiful the style is. You look at the whether this style is publicity style or newspaper style or now we go to stylistic lexicology. It has to do with vocabulary. Study the semantic meaning, structure of the meaning or structure of the of semantic structure of the word and the interrelation or interplay, which is uh, the what is it? Connotation and denotation, connotative and denote, denote, connotation and denotation. We look at the connotation and denotation. We look at the connotation and denotation. We look at the connotation and denotation. Okay, so we have like of a 13 word and context. We look at the connotation and denotation of the word within the context. This is stylistic lexicology. It has to do with vocabulary, how vocabulary is interpreted, is plotted within a certain text. So we look at the denotative and connotative of a certain of meaning of a certain word, as well as the interrelation of the stylistic connotation of the word and the context. So stylistic lexicology, we look at the words, vocabulary, how the vocabulary is being plotted or presented within a certain text, either connotatively or denotatively. Now we come to stylistics, phonetics. We have to do phonology. This is why sometimes called phonostylistics. Is engaged of study of the style forming phonetic features of the text. You look at the text suprasegmentally. You look at the colloquial or oratory, colloquially or oratory. You look at the speech types of speech, either colloquial or oratory. Stylistic methodology, morphology. So stylistic grammar, we have this comprise stylistic morphology and stylistic syntax. You look at the grammar, finally you look at the sounds. Stylistic syntax, you look at grammar in general. You look at the grammar and how grammar is being presented within a certain text. Stylistics and other linguistic discipline. We have stylistics is closely connected with such discipline as phonetic, lexicology, and grammar due to the common source of study. So stylistics interacts with semasiology, which is a branch of linguistics whose area of study is that of meaning. Meaning is not attached to the level of the word only, but it correlates with morphemes, phrases, and text. This is very challenging since particularly all stylistics effects are based on interplay between different kinds of meaning on different levels. We have onomasiology. Onomasiology is usually defined as the branch of lexicology that departs from a concept or referent and asks for the names bestowed, names bestowed, where is it, to it by different speech communities. It is a theory of naming dealing with the choice of words when naming or assessing some object or phenomena. For in stylistics, we often have to do with the transfer of nominal meaning in a text, like metaphor, and metonymy. Okay, so these are the These are some questions that they are in the book. You can go and look at them so that you can answer all of them. So, dear students, this is our first lecture of stylistics. I wish you good luck.